Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all doing very, very well.
Hi, Gary.
We're joined by two bosses today. I thought we were just going to have Dale, which is why I said, ask the boss. And it turns out Matt Whiting's here as well. Matt, how are you doing? Thank you for coming here.
Very well, thank you. Good to see you.
So we have the development manager and the head of brand. So between you guys, it's all your credit or all your fault, depending on your position.
Yeah, well, it depends. If it's our fault, then it's certainly a wider team issue.
Of course,
but if it's going well, then me and Matt share that. So
perfect.
yeah,
perfect. You've done the right
problem divided by a problem divided by 8 is certainly easier to bear than us. So
so 2025 range has been announced, and do you know what? I think generally speaking, to better than normal reviews, I have to say. Normally, you know, you think, yeah, that's all right, but I'm seeing a lot more. Oh, that's cool, because I think you've done a lot across different ranges. What was your thinking behind this sort of general release, and probably also going forward into the next few years? Are you doing that? Are you diversifying away from just aeroplanes or something?
Yeah. So this year, as you know, and I'm sure many of your subscribers will know, that you know the range that we presented yesterday has been in the making for over 12 months. So we've been planning that for a long time. The Jaguar was an obvious one for us, or one that we really wanted to go and do after the success of the 48 scale Buccaneers, and obviously the Gannet and bits and pieces as well. So that was sort of fully within our wheelhouse type thing to go and do. The Ferret sold extremely well and continues to sell really well. So very early doors, we then started to look at, well, what else within that family, within that era could join it, and then where does that go going forwards? The Stalwart is it was our choice, and judging by less than 24 hours worth of pre-orders from trade and our own website, it's the Stalwart's doing really, really well. So top 5, which is great. Well, actually top 2, and it's only being beaten by the Jag. So yeah, and then the other bits and pieces, which is sort of just, you know, a mixture of re-releases, previous decal schemes, or going back to the first issues. So yeah, so that's historically how we build the ranges up anyway. So we've not really done anything too different, but I guess over the last couple of years, where we've started to go into these little niches of categories, you're just seeing more added to that. And then in terms of diversification of plastic modeling kits in general, space was a big one for us there. We'd already planned to do Artemis. When you start considering what Artemis is planned to go and do, go to the moon, etc., etc. So we'd already started that, but then we did a ton of insight research, and there's more to talk about at some point, but not yet. And that insight research basically told us that space is a really good subject to go and do, and get in front of new people that don't model now. Although they've expressed an interest in it, but the subject matter doesn't interest them. And space was quite top of the list. So we then started to change our thinking about what that range could look like. Instead of just releasing one new rocket, can we build up a small range? Should it be a classic kit, vintage classic gift set? How does that start to look? The packaging, the look and feel, it will be different as well. So there's a lot of what you like is sort of business as usual stuff, but there's a lot of background insight research to and new ways of thinking as well.
If we could look at the Artemis first of all, I mean, I should have guessed something like this was coming along, because when we did the sprue box talk with you back at the beginning of summer, me and Moz and Stuart, was it? And you were so keen to ask about space.
Yeah, that had already been designed, that had been toured up.
And Moz was properly enthusiastic about it. And I was sitting there thinking, really? Like, really? Do you think there is that excitement? Because I spent like 20 or so years on an almost daily basis talking to the guys at manned spaceflight in NASA. And a lot of them say things like, oh yeah, I said to my son the other day, something was really space age. And he says, what, you mean old fashioned? Because they view Apollo as ancient age, do you think that they can generate NASA, the public excitement that then will obviously feed into demand for your kit with something now that it's no longer a race against the Soviets or whatever? Do you think that you can really push that side of it?
Yeah. So referring back to this insight research, so we went out to, I can't remember how many thousands of people across the UK, and it was a true proportion of the UK demographic, if you like. And it came back that space was one of the top subjects that people that aren't currently modelling would be interested in modelling.
Excellent.
So that's two boxes. You've got to convince them to model. Well, these people are already just about to tick that box, and they certainly will now. You've put one of their top subject choices in the range or as an option for them. I mean, personally, I think space is an amazing thing right now. There's rockets going up all the time. SpaceX, I think, launched something again yesterday, or certainly within the last couple of days. NASA announced a couple of days ago, a week or so, that there's delays to the SLS Artemis project, but it will still happen. So there's a lot more on the media, on the news, the TV and the media about space. Arguably, there is a bit of a space race again, but actually it's between...
Chinese, I guess.
Yeah, but it's more... You could argue that it's a space race just within America itself, between private organisations and the government, So all that's quite interesting. So yeah, it's... that, again, just looking at less than 24 hours worth of pre-orders and interest since we announced that yesterday. Those three products alone are within the top 10. Great news. I don't think that the announcement would have been as popular if we hadn't announced something new at all.
Right.
If I'm honest. So that was quite key for us to do. And then we're looking at ways of what we could add to that going forward, depending on what the next sort of 6 months or so look for us. But
well, best of luck negotiating the rights with SpaceX, because the thing that's going to land people back on the moon, apparently at the moment, looks like the SpaceX Starship something or other. So you're going to have the fun of negotiating with them. That's going to be great. That's going to be really something to look forward to.
It. But our licensing manager will sharpen his pen.
You've got 3.5 years before it's even planned to get there, so you've got plenty of time.
But do you know that what, as you know, one of our biggest considerations with any new subject matter, like modern new subject matter, is how much is it going to change once we've designed it and tooled it? Will it still look like the thing when it goes off and does something very eventful? And we were fairly confident that the SLS Artemis will be very similar to the model that we've represented.
Certainly for the first 3 missions, it's going to stay broadly the same, and then they'll start putting bigger boosters on it and things like that. But that's something that we've considered in the design of the product. So, yeah.
And also from the remembering from the shuttle days, any change to anything takes such a long time to lead time because they're human flight qualified. There's like an extra 20 levels of checking. So if something is going to change, they would already 5 or 6 years ago have made the change to the publicly available images, because they would be testing it. So what you got now, I think, can pretty much say is what you're going to see fly. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
that's really cool. And it's good to see the shuttle and the Saturn V back as well, because that's going to be popular with a lot of like this sort of almost the vintage classics sort of feel to it as well. Saturn V particularly, as I say, that's what, 1972 the last time one of those was used, something like that. For a shuttle, a lot of people remember. I remember very, very clearly all of them. And I never built the shuttle, and I'm told the Airfix 144th is a very, very good model of the space shuttle. So it's great to have that back, which is fantastic.
Yeah, when we started to look at the space shuttle, we were worried at one point that we couldn't find all the tools, but we managed to find them. And was quite surprised at actually how long that hasn't been in the range for. So it was planned to go back in the range 10 years or so ago, but for whatever reason, it never quite happened. And I think it was maybe the roadblock that we nearly come up against was the thought that some tools have been lost, but we managed to not convince them, but confirm that the tools were certainly receipted into a location, so they looked a bit harder when they found them. So, I just think that those three things are those three, the Saturn V space shuttle and the SLS Artemis. You know, if it was just the Saturn V and SLS Artemis, then yeah, great. Very similar looking rocket, pointy, long shaped things. But to add the space shuttle as well just makes it extra more special and perhaps more memorable to a lot of people seeing those things fly around and on the news. So, we're looking forward to bringing that through.
And it won't be long before someone scratch built enough bits to put it on the back of a 747 and make it the shuttle carrier aircraft as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing that done. Looking at the rest of your new releases here, the Jaguar, obviously, as you said, that was a Cold War British 148th, absolute slam dunk. So many people have been asking about that. That's superb to see in the range. Obviously, I haven't seen what the frames look like or anything like that yet. Is it be within the bounds of possibility, without obviously committing to it, that you could replace the fuselage parts to make a two-seat trainer? Or is that something you're just not going to bother doing? Because I don't know what the frames look like, so I can't look and say, oh, like with the Liberator, it's like, oh, you are definitely doing more versions of the Liberator because the way the nose fits on. I think when you see the plastic and the frames, and we're going to take some of that stuff up to IPMS Bolton show with us, it'll be very obvious what you can and can't do, and potentially what we have planned. Okay, so I'll send someone up to Bolton and take some pictures for me. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be loads flying around here. I won't be going up to Bolton. Okay. The other thing I think was really, really wanted, and from a lot of manufacturers have been nagged about this, is the two-seat Spitfire. I think that looks beautiful. That looks like a really lovely kit. And there was a lot of changes. Normally you'd say, okay, well, you've changed the fuselage to have the two cockpits while you're calling it a new tool, but there's a lot that's been changed in this, I believe.
Yeah, so the TR9 and the 9E went through the design process as a common project. They're kind of twins. So basically, there's a shared mold that covers off things like the tail planes and the undercarriage and radiators. And then there's a unique mold for the fuselage and wings of each of those models. To represent the differences. Originally, we thought, oh, it's just a different fuselage, but when you start digging into it, there's modifications to the wings as well. So they're more different than you'd think. Mm-hmm. And I love the Irish Air Corps as the box art. That just looks beautiful. I know a lot of guys from the Republic who do a lot of modelling and are always complaining they can never get Irish Air Corps versions of things. So you've done it with the Chipmunk, now you've done it with the TR9. That's looking good. What's
the two-seater Spit was. What's ironic is that the Mark 9 is the afterthought to doing the two-seater first. So just in case anyone's wondering, and just thought, oh, if we do a Mark 9, then we can do a two-seater. Actually, we wanted to do the two-seater, so we got a Mark 9 out of it. So, I mean, they go hand in hand, as Matt said. But if we had to compromise on anything, we would still have a two-seater Spitfire. We most probably wouldn't then have the Mark 9. So just to let you know how our minds were working there, and the sales data so far for that is the two-seaters outperforming the Mark 9. So. Who would have known? Who would have known that? I mean, we clearly did know that it was going to do very well, but That's really good. And the second decal scheme for that is an interesting one as well. And I saw some chatter last night on social about people trying to go, there's no airfield there, or trying to sort of link it back to somewhere, but they got there in the end. So
Ivor is 20 minutes away from me. I play golf there occasionally, so yeah, that's where the studios are. Is it Pinewood or somewhere? That's down there as well, isn't it? Yeah. So I was looking at thinking, really? Oh, well, do you know what? Yeah, this part of England is covered with places that used to be airfields. That's fine. Whatever.
We've hit the nail on the head there, Gary, with its connection to something else. So that's the decal scheme there.
Sure, excellent. The Wessex in 172nd. That's exciting to see a Wessex. The thing that I'd slightly confused me. I was looking at the box art and then looking at the entry on the Airfix website, the .com. Putting in my pre-order, of course. You say it's a skill level 1. I think that's being. Is that optimistic for that, or is there something in the way you've designed the kit that actually makes it a really easy to build helicopter?
Well, all our stuff is really easy to build, Gary. As you know, it's engineered to a premium. But
that's true.
Well, I need to check that. It doesn't strike me as a skill level 1 kit having seen the detail of it.
I think that might need correcting on the website.
Yeah. Okay, cool. It did surprise with the folding rotors and all that. And at 172nd, that's quite an achievement of design, because I remember it from the Sea King at 148th, and that's quite a thing. It's, as you say, it's achievable by all means, but it's still quite a fiddly thing to design, I would think, at 148th. At 172nd, was that a real issue to try and get that all to fit with the part count and making it buildable?
To be honest, at one point I said to the designer that I think doing it folded up is going to be too complicated, and I think we should just accept that it needs to be unfolded. But our brilliant young designer Ethan went away and had a bit more of a think about it and worked out how to do it, and was able to do a really nice job of getting all the folded up bits in there. So works well.
Excellent. That's good stuff. And yeah, as you say, the stalwart, the old Stolly coming into the range, that's superb to see that. And of course, a lot of people have been saying, is Airfix going to start doing a few more 1/35th scale British vehicles? Because there are huge gaps in the market, as you know yourself from the stalwart. If you want to do it in resin, that's grand, but not everyone does, because that's quite a painful process. Plastic injection is brilliant.
No, thank you. So the ferret was just that sort of golden nugget, really, that we couldn't believe that no one had ever done in plastic injection. So and then when we saw how well that had been received and then started to sell, as I said, we then started to look at, well, what else in this era has never been done before, or is really difficult to get hold of, or we could do better. And we looked at quite a number of things, most of which have been mentioned quite a lot over the last 48 hours. The Stolly was unusual, and actually we found when we were doing the research for the ferret, there was a photo of a stalwart jumping over a little hill somewhere with a ferret in the back.
Wow.
on the back thing, and we were like, that's it. We've got to do a stalwart because the connection to the ferret. So at some point we will use that photo for some marketing, but we were tempted to use the photo for some sort of sneak preview thing and just say, guess what's coming next, and everyone would of course guess a different ferret. But so that's good. But it does pave the way for other things. But as and when we can't commit to, and but yeah, it will certainly be nice to add more to that.
It must be encouraging seeing the two solo venture, your own, because these are both like completely Airfix things, aren't they? Not co-productions, they're entirely in-house kits.
Yeah,
that must be really rewarding to say, right, we've tried it twice and we've scored 2 goals, because the ferret is remarkable. This looks incredible. It must give you like a lot of impetus to say, well, what else can we do? because
Yeah, definitely. The only it's not a drawback, but just consideration is that a stalwart to design up a tall stalwart does take design and tooling budget away from an aircraft or something else. So we, instead of specialising in sort of one subject matter, which could be aircraft of a certain scale or whatever, that we don't help ourselves by spreading, sometimes spreading ourselves quite thin. But it's great to find these little areas and explore into them. So, and I think that's always what's made Airfix quite special, is that it's not just a sort of one subject era brand, that there is something there for everyone, and space plays into that, and there's loads of other stuff that we've done in the past that really plays into that. So
cool. Just one quick question. A few people have asked me about this with the new toolings. Is the Lysander, have you got any idea when that might be available? Because there's a lot of people very desperate to make that.
There's a lot of people here very desperate to get the stock in. So, yeah, so the latest date is that stock should be delivered to our warehouse this Friday. But originally it was this, depending how far you go back, but just before we broke up for Christmas, the container was due to arrive with us on the 2nd of Jan. So just to give you an idea of how quickly that has moved back, and it's moved back twice since then. So it's just completely out of our hands, out of our control. I mean, literally short of hiring a truck and going and finding that container in Germany at one point in time, there's literally nothing else we could have done other than just wait. It's frustrating as it is for modelers as it is for us. So yeah, we can't wait to release it and see what people come up with.
So in the next couple of weeks, it's likely to be out in the big wide world.
Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything this morning. The closer we get to that date is and the less I hear about it moving is always a good sign, isn't it? But yes, at the moment, our fingers are well and truly crossed that it is delivered to us on Friday. Normally by now the container ship would have landed in the UK, so that's a big tick. It's just the truck then delivering it to our warehouse, which is normally, that part is normally fine. It's just wherever the container is in the world and wherever the ship decides to port next or whatever. So bizarrely, their routes are constantly changing. So we are literally just a passenger at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a couple of channels I follow that are talking about maritime shipping, and it really can just be literally, you'd be cruising up the channel and you talk to Harwich and they say, sorry, we're full. Okay, we'll go to Rotterdam then. They've got a space. And just on the spur of the moment, basically, it goes wherever it can go. Yeah, there is limited capacity at each of these ports. And that must be incredibly frustrating for you.
Yeah, and we've talked about it as a brand team a little bit. You know, do we push our release dates back to give ourselves some wiggle room for when these things happen? They don't always happen, but we only ever talk about it when they do happen. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if there is a right or wrong to it, in all honesty. You know, we were really keen to release that Lysander the first full week we were all back and get it out there a week away from range launch. But, you know, that was just against us. So, and if you go back far enough, it was planned that Lysander would be in stock for Telford. So that gives you an idea of how things can slip, not because of anything was wrong or anything, but that you just have this natural slippage, and you bake time into all your production bits and pieces, don't you, for all of that, and purchasing do. But there's only so much time you can realistically bake into a plan, without it becoming unrealistic.
If I move on to your what you call capex releases, that's like second, third, fourth releases of kits that are already around that you've announced just yesterday. Chinook HG1, lovely. The Liberator B24D, incredible. They just seem a little bit to me to be earlier than I would have expected. I think Mystic Mug had both of those down for next year, not this year. because you only released them last year, and normally you seem to, I might be wrong, but you seem to give something at least a good 12 months before you release it. Was that just a convenience of the scheduling thing, or are you trying to get them quicker to market with the second and third releases?
That's much a me question, isn't it? There's a number of reasons. What you'll find is that there is 12 months in between actual stock landing from each other, the first batch of stock landing from each other. So that hasn't really changed too much. The fact that they're in subsequent catalogues is most probably the what you're seeing, referring to more than anything. We are going through stock of the first release far quicker than we would have anticipated, not just of those releases, but including those, which is a very positive news story. So then we start to ask ourselves, well, do we bring more of that one in and then risk flooding the market with more stock than is needed, having to discount it, which we don't want to do because that just devalues everything? Or do we jump to the next version perhaps slightly sooner than we would have done previously? And that tends to be what we do. So we will kill it and then just go, well, there is no more. You'll have to wait for the next version. The Sea King was an prime example of that. The first release 48 scale Sea King, we were out of stock of that for about 4 months before we then announced the next version. And brought stock in the 24 scale Spitfire. It's all a very positive thing. It's just that balance of do we bring in another X number of 1,000 pieces and then have this big overlap of stock, and we tend to sort of more recently jump to the next version sooner, which is good. It keeps demand up. It means people don't discount the product. It means that we can release the stuff we're really excited about sooner. Most of these things are pretty obvious that we're going to go and do at a later stage anyway. So, but we know.
Don't dismiss the predictive power of the mug. The mug it's not that easy to see all this, you know.
Well, looking forward to seeing your man cave finished, actually. But
actually, oddly enough, the schedule on that has been slipping due to supply issues with Windows. So.
Oh, they are, yeah. So, but I mean, some retailers have started to ask us for quantities of the first release of things. So that's great that they're coming to us and saying, well, if I order enough of these, will you go and do another production one? Well, if I can, or as a business, if we can turn around and say, actually, we're going to order MOQ of, let's say, 2,000 pieces, whatever it is, and I've already got a home for the first 500 or 1,000 pieces, then let's do it because the risk is much lower. So yeah, those discussions are always being had.
That's a good position to be in for considering the sort of negative comments made about Airfix as part of Hornby Hobbies, that general sort of miasma of thing, that you're in a position where you actually know, essentially, we can sell pretty much what we make on a lot of the range.
Yeah. We spoke at Telford, but you know, we are part of Hornby Hobbies Group. That's, you know, the financial statements and everything you see is from a group level. But when you start looking at it by brand, then each brand is in a different situation. So whether better or worse, but as we are a group, so but it's good to be in a position where releases and stocks and sell through percentages and stuff are in our favour, certainly.
So I'm slightly surprised to see the Messerschmitt 410 come in as a main release when it's due to come out as the club kit for this year. I know there are different versions. The club kit's got that really cool captured markings, which I think is brilliant. Really, really like that. Did you not think maybe leave the 410 for a little bit later in the year so that you get that separation with the club kit, like you did with the Meteor? You had the
year between
FR10 or whatever, and you had a year before it went into main Mark, do you not think there's a little crossover there, or do you think people are still going to want the club kit because of the unique markings?
Yeah, and I think as you say, the 410 in the captured markings is something quite unique. In the past, we've done club kits with captured markings on, and they go down quite well. But I think this is the first time we've actually done some unique molded parts to support the release as well. So although they're both in the range at the same time, but they have got different plastic inside.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the new mainstream one, for example, has got a bomber version as one of the options and stuff like that.
Yes.
Cool.
The feedback to the new club kit, although it's not out yet officially.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I'll let you ask me about that in a bit, but it's been very, very positive. Those captured schemes are amazing, aren't they? So, and when you see them built up, which you would have seen with the photos, and I gave you a sneak peek, Gary, at Telford, but they're great. Who wouldn't want an RAF captured 410? It looks amazing. So I don't think we need to worry about that at all.
Excellent. The Ferret Mark 1, excellent. Tick lots of boxes. I was hoping that you would make that because that's actually closer to the Ferret I want to make. So that's superb. The Gannet, the Cod 4 Gannet, that's kind of an interesting choice. Carrier on board delivery aircraft. They tend to have some slightly disparaging nicknames, delivery trucks and things like that. That's kind of an interesting thing, rather than going down the route of just doing a new decal scheme to appeal to, say, Australia and Germany and Indonesia, so without the different markets. Is that, how do you go about that thought process? Do you think a new parts release and then later a new decal release of version 1 is a better way to keep the whole project going than just doing the new decal release and then a bit later doing the Cod 4?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably argue it either way. Obviously, if we did the export schemes, they'd have the same molded parts inside. So offering the Cod 4, because it has got a different frame of parts for like the luggage panniers and the bomb bay, it just makes the kit that little bit more different. And might appeal to people that have already built the first version.
Sure. Or people like Hermes Airways on the side of the pannier on one of the schemes, which it's really cool. I like that.
That's the box front, isn't it? Hermes Airways. But Mystic Mug didn't quite get that one right, but
I know.
We'll at some point. So
Mug's not very happy about that. I've got to tell you, not very happy at all.
But if our Australian distributor wants to do an Australian version of it, then I'm more than happy to talk about releasing that kit sooner. But it will come at some point, I have no doubt. Yeah.
And then the rest of the range, you've got obviously new decal releases of a lot of kits. Great stuff. Interesting. One of the things that I caught me with the B-17G, you have it as a Fortress Mark III as well. And that has the ABC aerials, the secret squirrel electronic countermeasures and deception aerials. Have you thought of doing that on a Lancaster? Because there are quite a lot of Lancs that flew ABC missions in 100 Group.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we have in the past looked at the Lancaster tooling and sort of had a real big look at different versions that we could sort of add some extra tooling or new parts to sort of convert it into different variants. So yeah, it's something that's definitely on our radar, so to speak.
I see what you did there, Matt. Yeah, on the right. One interesting bit with the PR-19 in 48. And on the box art, you've got it in when it was trialled against a Lightning. You do Lightnings in 1/72nd, or you have done. You do the PR-19 in 1/72nd. Surely that's got to be the most bizarre dogfight double you could release. Going back to that one from the MiG-21 and the Cessna 02 era.
Yeah.
That could
That
be
was amazing box art, wasn't it?
a couple of with the dynamic stand. That could be quite an interesting little release. You can
Could
have
make
that
a
one
nice,
for free. Yeah,
could make a nice club kit one year.
Yeah, put that in your pocket. Have it for free, mate. You're right.
Thank you, Mug.
That's all right. Vintage classics are always fun because I know a lot of people want particular kits back, and then maybe the tooling's not there, or it's not complete, or it's not in the right state, or all these different things. It's always really fun to see what you can dig out from your store and bring back. I mean, something like the Boeing Clipper, not a plane that most people will necessarily even recognize, but it's a great kit, and I've pre-ordered mine already. That's a very exciting thing. And the motorboats. I looked when I was looking. Sorry, when Mystic Mug was looking at all of these things, the one reason that those weren't chosen was that there was only 10 years or 13 years since the last release. Normally it's about 20 years, but that's quite the trio. That's quite the set to bring back. It's the only reason why you thought those rather than over other things that maybe are older.
It's quite unique to find a set of 3 products that live together. Number one, when we look at vintage classics, we do look at the last time it was in the range as a factor, but it's not the only factor. We're certainly not looking at things that are 20 years plus all the time. And we look at demand as well. So when we ask people, what do you want to see in the vintage classic range? We do listen, and we do write it all down, and it does influence our decision making. But the timings of, if we asked you last week, then yesterday's announcement was already done. The catalogs were already printed, but we might see a comment last week on a post that would influence our 2026 range. That could likely happen. So it's nice that you've got 3 products there that sit together. It'd be a shame to release one every year for 3 years. I think that would upset quite a few people. So that was the sort of reasoning behind putting all 3 of those back in the range now.
Yeah, and then in the real world, there's some really interesting restorations of real vessels that have. So I think there's an RAF rescue launch and a Vosper torpedo boat that have recently been restored, and I've seen a lot of YouTube stuff of like people going out on trips in them. And certainly there's the last remaining German S boat. There's a big push at the moment to restore that. I think the guy that owns it has just bought a dock down in Devon to sort of base his restoration in. So it's all things that are kind of a bit more in the public eye, sort of related subjects.
Okay.
Just getting a message in, Gary, that our researcher is telling me that the lightning was a different mark to our 72nd scale one. So you couldn't.
Oh, well, there we go. There we go. Well done.
Thank you, Clint. Thank you, Clint. He's descaling a kettle in the office at the moment. Good lad.
So if we could go back then to the club kits, when are they likely to be available? When can people renew their membership and get the new ME410s?
Tomorrow. So we won't be able to get them tomorrow, but you'll be able to renew your membership tomorrow. The plan is that the club page will go down at around 9 o'clock, and then the new offering and everything will go live for 10. So, so yeah, that will happen tomorrow. The club kits are on the same vessel container shipment as the Lysanders. So stock of that should come in on Friday. So if all things go well, if you renew tomorrow when the club page has all been refreshed, then and the stock does come in on Friday, then you should receive your club package red box and everything the following week. So if the container is delayed by a few more days, then obviously that just has a slight knock-on effect, but it shouldn't be drastically delayed, especially when we haven't heard any more this morning on it. So So that's the club. Ideally, the range launch and the club would be in 2 separate weeks, but the way that the weeks fell this year and range launched, they were in the same week. So there's a large proportion of club members whose membership expires on the 16th.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't want anyone to go without any of the sort of discount benefits and all that sort of stuff. So we felt that it was only right to offer the renewal on the 16th. And then if you have to wait an extra few days or whatever it is for the club back, so be it. But at least you can still benefit from your 10% off, especially when we've just announced the range.
Well, yeah.
So and obviously club members 10% discount includes pre-orders. When we tend to do promos like that over weekends for non-club members, it's in stock only. So again, that was a consideration. We didn't want anyone to miss out. So
cool.
So tomorrow. But don't renew until you see the 410 on that page, because the amount of people that have renewed, we didn't help the situation, but the amount of people renewed then have received the amazing D-Day Duo kit that has contacted us. So we've sorted all those people out, of course. But don't renew until you see the 410 on that page. Is it?
Excellent. Now, I was thinking about last year, and this time last year, you were saying, well, that's not it. That's not everything yet, folks. Is that the same this year? Are you keeping some secrets hidden away for us for later in the year?
Yes.
Halifax. Sorry, terrible frog in my throat there from a visit to Yorkshire. Very, very fine towns in Yorkshire.
Yes. So there will be more to come. Obviously, what and when is a mystery, said Toya. But what we did last year was sort of load the back end up with mystery stuff, which helps us on the dev side. It helps us with purchasing, and it also helps us manage slippage easier. So, if it does move back by 2 months, like the Lysander, actually no one knows that it's moved back by 2 months, because you've not told anyone. So unless you announce it at Telford, and it still moves back 2 months. But that's one of the reasons. So will you see anything, any secret releases, announcements for the first 4 or 5 months or so? It's very unlikely, but stranger things have happened, haven't they? So
Excellent.
It's certainly the plan.
The last thing I was going to ask you, before I have a quick look through some of the questions that come in, you now have, from what appears, a very settled design team after a lot of changes, a lot of bits of comings and goings. How do you think that's affecting your future plan? And obviously, that puts you in a very good and happy place, I would have thought, for the future.
Say that again. Sorry, Gary. I was
you've got new designers. Matt is now in charge of all of them. You've got new people come in. You now seem to have a very settled team within the design. Do you think that's going to make a big impact on the way Airfix are doing things in the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the team for a very long time. We've got two very experienced designers that have obviously still in their post. We've got a new researcher who's doing some brilliant stuff. And that's someone we knew before anyway, because he was actually doing some decal artwork for us. So he's coming to the team full time. And we've had someone, brilliant designer, move over from the another development team within Hornby. Lady designer, she's very talented, so she's been working on some really cool new projects. We're looking forward to what the future brings.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it does mean ultimately we have less designers than we did 6 months ago,
right?
So the if you like, the full knock-on effect of that won't be seen for a little while, but at some point it will be noticeable. But then we're working on other stuff in the background, so as those projects come to an end, new ones that our traditional audience and etc. will really expect. So that's all. It's just a factor that we're just having to deal with. It's just, it's not a negative. It's just a factor. But we're still trying to squeeze as much as we possibly can when we shake the money tree upside down, and we get our proportion of it. We try to do as much as we can with it. So and the guys aren't certainly chatting by the cooler, are they? They're working very hard. So yeah.
Matt, your face looks, just a moment there, looks to Dale and it's like, they wouldn't dare just stand around looking by the cooler.
We haven't got, well, actually we have got one. They wouldn't just go and descale our kettle in the office, would they? I'm waiting for Clint to text me now.
That's essential maintenance, descaling. That's Marvel. Okay.
It's a very well-rounded brand team in the office, not dev team, marketing team, but then the wider resources that we have in the business that wear an Airfix hat quite a proportion of their time. It's very good. We work very well together. So
excellent. I will say lots of people are mentioning 172nd Halifaxes. Just saying. I'm just going by what my audience is saying. Just lots of people. You know what? There's lots of versions. All the things you told us were the reasons why you picked kits. In your words, Jim was also asking. There's no more of dinosaurs or birds. I guess it depends on whether you can find the figures, the molds rather than Napoleonic figures. There weren't any general figure sets from the past you released, like you did the guards and things like that. Are they things that you will look at doing again in the future, or are they been and done?
No, absolutely no. So all those things, providing we still have the tools for them, then at some point they will make an appearance. Absolutely. Why no 0076 scale figures or multi-posed figures this time around? We've got the 48 scale RF ground crew ones. They've not been in the range for a little while. But we also have the Matt now, but we can only pump through X number of products, new capex, re-release or otherwise a year. So that number is normally around 50 units, isn't it? No, 50 different products, new products a year. So we get to a point where, yes, we could go and do all that stuff, but actually it takes us way beyond that 50 number. Sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less. I tend to throw in some specials and panic it a little bit, but everyone comes up trumps with it. So, but that's sort of the magic number. So, Napoleonic figures, I'd love to see those back in our range. They're lovely things. I hear really good things about them as well. So,
they had a lovely set of them on the Airfix SIG or the Airfix forum.
We took a lot of inspiration from that at Telford. So, but that's not just one set of figures. So if you're going to go and do that, you've got to basically try and replicate everything from the Battle of Waterloo, haven't you? So all of a sudden you've got 6 or 8 figure sets that you've just added to your 50 SKU count, that one at some point that will be right for us to go and do. So
from a development point of view, in the past figures have been very expensive. They've had to be sculpted by hand and then pantographed in when the tools are made. They're all pantographed by hand. But when people start getting their Lysander kits, they'll notice we've got some new figures in there, and they were our first sort of foray into digital sculpting. The local guy who's very talented at sculpting figures digitally. From that, we can generate the CAD files and get them machined straight into the tool. So we had some nice feedback after showing those figures up at Telford. So certainly that's another avenue we can look at to make it a lot quicker and more cost effective to do figures. So
an awful lot of people, when you see a release, say, why is there not a pilot figure when you sell it with the ability to have the undercarriage up? So that would be good if there's going to be an easier way for you to do that. Cool.
Yeah.
just if anyone's actually interested in that, of course they all are. Hopefully, the latest Airfix magazine sales will hit a spike today. People going out to their local stores to see if they can grab hold of a copy, because it's all about the 148th Jag. I may have to go down and get one myself and have a look at what the frames look like to see whether you're going to make a T2 version. And it comes it's all right. Halifax and Jaguar T2 are now just going to be part of every conversation we have, Dales. Just get used to it, my friend. Just get used to it. What's all? So, oh, here we go. So, again, more British vehicles in 135th. 148th Wessex, a possibility. Someone did ask later in the stream, actually, an interesting question was, is it something that you think of when you're, say, designing a 148th to say, we'll also look at how we would later scale this down to 172nd, or indeed the other way around? Is that part of the process, even if you're not committed, say, to doing a 172nd scale Gannet now? Would you, as part of the design process, look at, well, if we do that down the road, let's get this prepared so that it can relatively easy do, or would you just go right back to basics and start from scratch?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when we do all the research is relevant to any different scale. So if we've got that in the bank for one scale, then it makes it a lot quicker to start the project for another scale. So there have been projects in the past where we know that we are going to look at doing this in a different scale in the future. So you're sort of extra careful when you're setting the CAD model up to make sure all your references are nice and solid. The model's got that extra bit of, like, you go to the extra effort of making sure all of the shapes are really accurate, so that it's got the detail in it to scale up. So it's certainly something that's always in the back of our minds with certain subjects. For like Buccaneer, for example, when we did 72nd scale Buccaneer, we knew at some point we were going to venture into doing that at 48 scale. And a lot of the Spitfires as well. The shape of the 24th scale Spitfire we did, the CAD model for that actually goes back to the Mark 1 Spitfire we did back in 2013. But when we did that, we put a lot of effort into researching all of the original manufacturer's drawings and things like that, so that we knew that it was a solid shape to build on top of.
Excellent. You've got definitely Colin's going to be coming to see you at the weekend to see. Do you know what you will actually be able to show at Bolton at the weekend? What will you be talking
No, James is going to go up there with Cleggy. James asked me this morning, or said to me this morning, we must go through the list of stuff I need to pack for Bolton, and it's 2:00, and we haven't gone through that list yet, but we will. James, don't worry. But we will. It would be a shame not to show the Jag, wouldn't it? So let's. We'll take the Jag. We'll take the Stalwart. And then we'll have a think about what else we've got kicking around. So yeah, the only thing that certainly won't leave us anytime soon is the Wessex. So that's the only thing we've got here is a stereo. There's built test shots. There's test shots kicking around, but it's just not ready yet. It's too soon anyway. You know, you've got ages to wait for that one. So whereas Jag should be released by the end of March. So that's the one to really, for us, that we will be focusing on quite a lot. That, the Eurofighter Typhoon, and then the Stalwart.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Brian is asking, are you likely to start doing things like this? STL files for home printing of either corrections or different parts, options that maybe you don't think would justify you doing a whole new release? A PDF version of the catalogue, and would you include master templates in the future like RCM do?
So all things that get discussed in the office on a fairly regular basis. So thank you, Brian. STL files on the website, we have spoken about that for a number of years now, and we'd love to do something. So there's a couple of projects happening within the business at the moment. One of them isn't that, but would lead us down, would give us a good solid bedrock to then start talking about that sort of activity. So we have to wait to see that come through and be completed before we can start talking about a STL download area. What that would be, what sort of files, whatever, we've spoken about just extra bits and pieces, payloads or whatever, just to add something to a kit that's already been purchased. PDFs to the catalogue. So we don't like to hand out PDFs to the catalogue because the catalogue is a product in its own right. So it's a sellable item. So they retail for $8.99 in the UK. So for that very reason is the reason why we don't give a PDF out. So if you want a catalogue, you have to go and buy it. Key Publishing with Airfix Model World run a deal right now where you can get a free catalogue, or there's some promotion where there's a catalogue involved. Don't quote me on that, but they always do a deal. If you go onto our website right now, you can buy for $9.99. You can get a catalogue and a free Series 1 kit, which is worth $8.99 as well. So for an extra £1, you get a model kit with it. So there are ways of getting a catalogue that is less than just giving us $8.99 of your money. So the straightest way. So that's nice, and hopefully the catalogue and mystery kit bundle on the website will perform really well. So
excellent. And
then masking templates and stuff like that. Again, that's something else that we've spoken about. But timings for all of that, if we ever do, is not something that we can talk about. So
sure. Your space releases have gone down very well. Are you looking at maybe releasing some more airliners in the future, apart from vintage classic ones, obviously, to catch up with all the things that have been released since Airfix last did it? Like essentially the whole Airbus range, I suspect, for a start, apart from the 300.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that list, I mean, I think some of those have been reissued relatively recently, and certainly I've seen those in red boxes. Yeah, we work our way through all of the vintage classics airliners, I'm sure, sort of one by one. One of the issues with things like that is licensing.
It's not beyond.
Yeah, it's all solvable, but it can be a bit of a hurdle sometimes.
Licensing and volume, and they go hand in hand. So if we go and talk to Airbus and say we'd like to do a brand new range of Airbus aircraft, then they will go, yes, please, we'd love you to do that. What volumes are you going to do, and this is how much you need to pay us to do it. And quite often the airliners, we can't get the volumes that we would do out of military subject. So which is one of the main reasons why we tend to steer clear out from new design, new tooling stuff. So that is just the main factor.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas deliver you a 148 scale Jaguar instead of 2 airliners, and people go crazy for it. So and we're so far more.
That whole aspect of licensing always. I'm not expecting a comment on this, obviously, but it just I find it bemusing that a company that sells a product for like between $100 and $400 million a pop is asking a company who wants to make a plastic representation of it for a licensing fee. It just seems
yeah. I mean,
I know it happens, and that's why
it's another revenue stream for them. Games Workshop have done very well out of it. I think Games Workshop licensing, merchandising department now turn over more than Airfix does alone. Just them selling their own IP out, let alone selling their product. So that gives you an idea of the size of the prize if you can get it right. So it's not insurmountable. And we work with a lot of licensors, and they're all amazing, and a lot of them don't ask us for anything. So there's an agreement in place, there's approval process, but we don't have to pay them anything, which is great. 10% on a kit that sells for $8.99 really isn't going to pay for a new office refurb or even a round of drinks in London. But they've got to protect their own IP. Airliners, as a factor of just whilst we're talking about licenses, most of them have multi-licenses as well. So if we talk Airbus, that there might be a royalty to pay there. If we want to do a British Airways livery, then there will be a royalty to pay there as well. So before you know it, you've got maybe 2 or more license royalty payments to pay on one.
And for the big ones, you've probably got the engine manufacturer, which engine they've gone for. So maybe
maybe. Yeah, so I know that can be a very big factor in the world of Scale Electric here. When they do their big sets and they include 6 cars, then what you tend to see is there'll be 6 cars, but they'll be from 2 manufacturers. Yeah. Instead of adding another license fee in. It's just another commercial factor that we have to consider. And
Kevin's asking why you don't do 1/32nd, I guess primarily in the aircraft ranges.
I mean, that's a very big question.
So we're looking for a very big answer.
At the moment, if we're going to put that amount of time and investment into a kit, we've almost got this 24 scale marketplace to ourselves. So at the moment, we're building that range up rather than venturing into 32nd scale. But there's subjects that we would love to see in 1 to 32nd scale. Never say never. But at the moment, we're focusing on 24 scale.
Okay, cool. One very specific thing about the TR9. Will it have gun ports for the Irish version? Do you happen to know?
So what we've done is we've put the red doped patches as decals.
Okay. Okay, just see if there's anything else that's really sort of broadly enough. One for Dale, mate. Have you learned how to pronounce core?
Oh, do you know what? Out of all the things that kept me up last night, so I am kicking myself so much because when I did the voiceover and everything for that, and obviously I do the bit to camera, which takes me long enough, but then I do all the stuff just to the mic. And when I was reading all that out, I was thinking to myself, this isn't right, this is not right. And then, and being a military brat myself, which makes it even worse.
Oh my God.
There was this niggle which I didn't answer, and I wish I had now. And but in my defence, no one else picked it up here in the office. But that hurts. That really hurts. So I apologise to everyone for that. But when I went and picked my little girl up last night from my parents, my dad sat there and said, I've got a bone to pick with you, and it's and I was like, oh. So I apologise for that.
Yeah, and there's also 2 squadrons of the Royal Air Force you should apologise to for mixing up 2 Army Cooperation Squadron with 11 Squadron. The one you've got is a 2 squadron aircraft, and they use Roman numerals. That one I'm not gonna. Yeah, apologies, but not as bad as the Corp. No. I wasn't going to mention that, but someone did.
No, I'm glad. I'm glad your viewer has, but if you notice, I don't try and read out a lot of the German schemes, so we flash them up on the screen, and I might go Greece 1942, and then that's it.
Yeah.
So
2JG4 or something like that. Don't use all the abbreviations. Don't try the big words. It's a nightmare for me when I'm doing Monday Matters and someone's just come up with another SDKFZ 251, and I've spent ages learning how to say what it does. But unless you
I really struggled to say 77 centimeters tall. Like to say that really quickly on that video was took me quite a while. So I got there in the end.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, guys. I know you've probably got an insanely busy day as it's the day after the launch, but it's really good of you.
I realised you just said it wrong again. It's core. It's not corpse, or it's core. Yeah.
What's so
I'm
difficult?
going to go in the corner and cry now.
Mate,
So
what's so difficult, really? I really appreciate you guys dropping in. It's really, really good of you to do this. I know that you're insanely busy at this time of year, and it's very, very good of you both to drop in and give us some ideas of what, how things are working and your reaction. I think, as I say, generally speaking, very, very positive reaction to the range launch this year. Yeah. So looking forward to some of my pre-orders arriving and start building this stuff.
Yeah, I was looking at the pre-order list this morning on a couple of products, so I kept on seeing your name there. So thank you, Gary, and thank you for everyone else for your positive comments and your pre-orders so far with us or our retailers. I know it's all very appreciated and gives us a good steer as well. So thank you. Yeah, and we look forward to delivering the products to the market very soon and see you those at Bolton. So
yeah, and at Telford to Halifax, of course. Yeah. Thanks very much, guys. Really do appreciate it. I'll catch up with you again soon. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thanks, Gary. Bye-bye.